Jon Coghill, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
No worries.
Talk to me about the daily grind or the weekly grind.
Not really a grind because it's like a drug, right?
Yeah.
Every time you feel it, you want more.
It's almost like a whole lifetime worth of sacrifice and consistency and approach, truncated into 15 years. Welcome to the Success Times Happiness podcast, a platform dedicated to engaging discussions with inspiring individuals aimed at nurturing personal development. I'm Richard Thompson, your host, a father, entrepreneur, world champion Ultraman, and passionate about all things high performance. Our mission is to empower both ourselves and you to unlocking our fullest potential, recognizing that this life is no dress rehearsal. While I may not have all the answers, this show serves as our collective journey to uncover them. Ever wonder what the life of a rock star is like? Today's guest is Jon Coghill, husband, father, a journo, filmmaker, and the drummer of one of Australia's most successful bands of all time, Powderfinger. Joining the band in 1990, Jon devoted his entire life to the art of making and performing music, and is an example of what can be achieved when you devote your energy into a craft that you are truly passionate about. Expect to learn what it was like for Jon growing up in a musical household, his audition with the band and the early days of Powderfinger, the moment he realised the band was going to be successful, and these hardest moments through the entire experience, and what life is like for Jon on the other side of rock and roll fame, and much, much more. I am a fanboy of Powderfinger and found Jon's view of the whole experience and life in general to be incredibly inspiring. Let's get into it. First question I have, and what intrigues me a lot about you, is that you've experienced a chapter of your life that is not common. It's not a common experience. And how you have reconciled with that experience being so unusual, I guess, with now post that chapter, and how you reconcile that and remember that in your current existence.
You're talking about being in a band for 20 years versus what happened afterwards. Is that right?
Yeah, or just what you're doing now with life, not in a world famous rock band, and you're just being Jon.
Right.
How do you reflect and carry on yourself knowing that you've had that ridiculously different experience that most humans don't get to experience?
To me, what I did was moderately normal because, and I've probably had a chance to think about this in the last 5 years or so, but the way my brain works, it's not so much about creating, it's about having an imagination and chasing what that imagination is, sort of thing. So to put it into perspective, I think when I was probably grade 5, I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. So I had that dream of being an X-Wing fighter, and I thought, well, why can't I do that, right? I can be a Jedi Knight. And then I think I went on to wanting to be a breakdancer because I fell in love with, I thought Michael Jackson was the best thing in the world, right? So the way my brain sort of worked was I would see these things and I wouldn't so much think that person's famous. Wow. I'd go, oh, how does he do that? How does that person?
It was accessible.
Absolutely.
It was an opportunity for you.
Yeah, because what they're doing really is skills, right? Like they've got the same skills, not the same skills, but they've got acquirable skills, these people, where I suppose maybe on the Sunshine Coast or maybe in parts of Australia, we look at stuff like that as abnormal. Whereas if you're living in LA or somewhere like that or Sydney, you'd go, oh yeah, I'm going to be a dancer or I'm going to be a musician or something like that. So
how young were you when you could say, oh, they're just skills, I'm sure I could learn them?
I don't think I even thought about it, to tell you the truth.
Wow.
I just would dream about that stuff. And I never was responsible enough to say that wasn't a dream, you know, that couldn't be achieved. I mean, I remember my brother, who's a doctor now, a GP, he always worked really hard. He had a part-time job and all this sort of stuff. And I'd get part-time jobs and I'd last 6 weeks or something because I was just hopeless at it because I was thinking of being Michael Jackson.
Being a Skywalker.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. So being into music and playing drums and writing music, that just felt right to me. I would get completely absorbed in my imagination sort of thing. I suppose I didn't look at it as abnormal. I looked at it as, that's just what I do, right? When the band finished, the last thing I wanted to do was be in a room creating stuff with four of my brothers who I'd been fighting with for the last 5 years, you know. And I wanted to try something different, which was I wanted to be a journalist because I'm thinking I need to learn more about the black and white in the world and not about that creative, colourful world, the greys. And going into journalism, I tried to push all that creative stuff away, and I lasted 7 years doing that. It's just slowly crept back in, and that's how my brain works. And I'm inspired by, you know, creating. I write film now. I try to make films. You know, I've been involved in trying to grow a film industry on the Sunshine Coast, all because it seems really natural to me.
Mm.
The business side of it seems really unnatural to me, but I know it's necessary, you know.
Mm. Yeah, I think I take your point in the sense that I think most young kids have that dream of being an astronaut, right? And then they grow up and they realize, or they get told, or the environment they're in is like, oh, actually, maybe you should just be a chippy. Get a bit more sensible with your projections. Your parents growing up in that household, when you're having these iterations of breakdancing, or then obviously you pick up the sticks and learn percussion and go down that path. Are they always supportive of that?
Well, my dad was a guitar player, and he used to have, like, they had a jazz band that would play at a lot of gigs around the Sunshine Coast, and they would have rehearsal at our place, for instance. So we'd sit there and we'd watch rehearsal. So it just seemed like a natural thing to happen. It's something that I apply to my kids now. Make music like a part of your life, as in make it have a piano sitting there, have a drum kit sitting there. Make it like it's part of the furniture. Like playing music is just what you do, instead of you need to do 30 minutes practice right now sort of thing.
Yep.
So I think that's probably what my mum and dad did. I know we always credit my grandma, who loved her fashion and played piano.
Okay.
And I suppose that comes through, right?
So then when do you pick up the sticks for the first time? Or were you drawn to drums with those rehearsals at home?
I think so, yeah. I played saxophone when I was a kid. I played classical guitar, and they never really stuck. And then I think I was 12 when I got a drum kit, and Mum and Dad could see that I was tinkering away on
the pots and
stuff,
pans,
listening to In Excess, of course.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And then that grew through high school. And are you fixated on that path, in the music path at that stage through adolescence?
No, I hadn't really thought about it. I know I wasn't really good at music. I just wanted to play drums, and I was fairly good at school, so I didn't find it a hassle. And then when I left school, I became really obsessed with practicing a lot, and that ended up doing auditions around Brisbane, and I got in Powderfinger through those auditions.
Yeah, so you up here, then you moved to Brisbane.
Yep.
The intent at that point was to find a band?
No, I went to uni. I went to study. I studied human movement studies, which was, I don't know what they call that these days, but it's, it was glorified PE teaching apparently. And then I studied science for a couple of years, but I didn't finish uni because I got too obsessed with music.
And tell me the story about when you first met the boys from Powderfinger.
Oh, right. I mean, I'd heard them playing every now and then. They rehearsed in a rehearsal room at UQ, at University of Queensland, and I was out one night, had a bit too much to drink, and I heard them rehearsing, so I thought, I'm going to go and see who these guys are. And I walked in, and they were a three-piece at that stage, and I was drunk enough to just decide to pogo around the room because that's what I was into, pogo dancing, and I think they were playing a Lime Spiders song. So, that was like that early alternative punk sort of stuff that they were playing, and I loved it. So I met them, and, when I went for the audition probably a year and a half later, I walked in the room and they said, oh, we recognise you.
You were the drunk guy dancing around at our practice.
That's right.
A year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And there's a sliding door moment there in the sense of the rehearsal stage, because you were going for a gig, a spot in
Custard.
In Custard at the same time.
It was the same week. I went for the same audition with Custard and an audition with Powderfinger. Custard were quite well established then, and I just couldn't do what they needed.
Yeah,
and then
a bit too rock.
Yeah, a bit too rock and roll.
Yeah,
not there was this Manchester sort of sound back then, Stone Roses sound, and I couldn't really do it.
Yeah.
So
moved on.
yeah.
And the audition, how did that process go? And them saying, yeah, we'd like you. Because how much, I can't imagine there's too many listeners that have been in even a long-term band, but that auditioning process, is it, I presume all the drummers, well, I mean, your example with Custard wasn't the case, but presumably everyone's got the skills. It's more about mixing with the team, or because you're going to be, presumably we're all in it together now. We're going to be living with each other, essentially working closely with each other forever or for a long time. How much of it is a personality thing at that rehearsal stage or that audition stage?
I mean, I'll answer that with a question. When you were 21, did you have the skills to work out who you're going to get along with?
Yeah, no. That's a late 30s understanding of the world.
That's right. Yeah, so it was like it did come down to whether I had the skills or not.
Yeah.
And they just took a leap of faith that it'd work out. And you see how many bands break up. We were lucky that I suppose for some reason Powderfinger really valued that working friendship that we established first, and we're always the same group, which made it a lot easier too. Now,
so they say, yep, you're good. And what's the next step? Is there a business plan meeting? This is the goal?
No.
We want to be able to sell out, or is it implied that everyone wants to make it to the number one charts or the?
No, we never thought like that. So Powderfinger already had a manager at that stage who was a friend of the band, and he was like the sixth member. You know, like Coldplay credit their band as being a 5-piece because they had their manager as well. We were the same thing, and our manager took care of all the business. So we didn't really have to think about that too much, but it was all about writing songs. And at that point, Powderfinger were actually quite good live. They sort of just built on this live show, but it was all about writing the best songs that we could.
At that stage, covers?
No, they'd stopped doing covers and they'd started doing original songs then.
Yeah, okay. So then you slot into that live performing schedule.
Yep.
Straight away?
Pretty much, yeah. It was probably 1 or 2 gigs a week.
And at that stage, and they've known each other for a little bit of time before that, is there a discussion that we're all on equal split of the monies?
I think that was just unwritten rule, really.
Yeah.
Because we all wrote together, and that really worked out well for, many years. But yeah, we never really questioned that, really.
It just was the band and the manager all taking equal share.
No, band taking equal shares, and then the manager had his own share as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know how other bands work. It seems like the only logical way to do it.
So it seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really hard to work out all the business side. I think people get a bit caught up in that when they really need to have a great product first, right?
In any aspect.
They have to have great songs and a great show. I don't know what else. Probably some social stuff these days, but get that first and then worry about the business later, maybe.
Then you get to work. And there's no dream, there's no expressed goal of this is where we're wanting to achieve. It's simply just the process of writing and making music.
With Powderfinger, yeah, that pretty much it. Like we could see, luckily we would play enough gigs, we'd play at least 1 gig a week. And then when we started touring off our own back, driving to Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide and Cairns and places like that, we would play to a certain amount of people. Say we played to 200 people, the next time we played to 400. And we would be writing, and the beauty of this was we could tell what songs worked. So we had a place to test everything, which was, okay, we've written this new song, and we'd play it that night, and we would see what the crowd's reaction was. And we could sort of tell from that what the good songs were. I remember when we first played Pick You Up, which was probably our first big hit, and the crowd reacted completely different to what we'd ever seen. And it was like this jumping up and down and sort of mayhem sort of thing. So I was like, so we're getting a good feeling from the song. The crowd's getting a great feeling, and we're getting a great feeling from the crowd. And it's that sort of goosebumps moment where you're, oh man, we're onto something here.
Right.
And we had that testing ground our whole 20 years, right? You could tell what songs were good.
I presume that as you progressively get better at it in terms of working together, you don't necessarily need that external validation because you guys know internally Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
No, I think you always need it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that is the beauty of, and as people say to me now, what do I do, in a band? Can you give me some advice? I just say, go and play live. Just do live gigs. It's not just a testing ground. It tests how you sound. You could tell when there was a shit song live. It was terrible. It's just like, this is shit. And you feel it. So I don't know. It's a really important thing.
Was there ever a time where one of the members were like, this is a banger, and then everyone's like, there really isn't. And then you go, we'll ship it up live, and then it drops dead.
There are a few. Yeah.
Talk to me about the daily grind or the weekly grind in those early stages of the band.
Not really a grind, because it was just such a buzz. Like, this is what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to be Luke Skywalker and Michael Jackson, and I was doing it. So the grind was trying to make a song really good. The grind was driving from Sydney to Adelaide across the Hay Plain or through Broken Hill or something like that, and you've been driving for 8 hours and you're really buggered, and someone won't stop smoking in the car, so you got bad asthma, or one of them won't stop farting or something like that. But it was sort of boredom, I suppose, but there was never really a hell of a lot of grind.
Before you went, though, you picked up, let's say, the time between you started and the time you got the first major record deal, it's sort of a 5-day a week. They're big weeks of practice.
Yeah, we'd sort of get together 4 or 5 days a week.
And practice
for, I don't know, however long we feel like it. I think in the early days we'd practice for 4 or 5 hours a day or something like that.
You just book a studio somewhere down in Brisbane?
No, we always hired out a permanent room somewhere. Okay. Some rundown building that was about to be condemned or something like that. We'd always have a room there.
Yeah.
And then other bands would come in, and there'd be, a community of musicians in those areas as well. So, yeah, we got to mix with a lot of good people as well.
Yeah, and in that industry, talk to me about, is it a collegiate experience or is it, well, no, we want to be the best band, so we're not sharing our experiences or sharing our notes, or is it more everyone's trying to lift each other up?
There was a real sense of everyone trying to lift each other up in the early days, because none of us, we were all underdogs and we hadn't got any attention. There were a couple of bands who were a bit up themselves, and you could sort of work them out pretty quickly, and they got pushed to the outer, I think. And I think what happened was a record company guy came up from Sydney to see what was going on, and he picked his favourites, and they were like, oh no, we're all missing out, sort of thing. And I think the first band to get signed on a big record deal was Regurgitator. And that sort of, I don't know, that's changed a few things where there was a bit of jealousy going on and stuff like that. But in the early days, it was very, very collegiate.
Yeah, okay. It was that when Regurgitator was signed, it wasn't opening the door of, anything's possible here, but it was more of a, shit, why not us?
There was a bit of that, and there was a bit of opening the door.
Yeah.
We'd already been talking to record companies, but yeah, I was definitely very envious when they got signed to a record company. Yeah.
I'm really intrigued with the pursuit, that moment in time, because it's the pursuit of high performance, right? Essentially what you guys are doing, and you're just working and reworking music so it's the very best within the group that can be made. And the skills you learn by doing that sets you up to be able to churn out the bangers, really good songs hit after hit in the future. But I'm also intrigued how, and you say it wasn't a grind because it's what you loved, and presumably the others as well, right? But it's this position of that the goal was the day-to-day. That was like you were in your element. That was the goal, not where it led. And that was just a byproduct of the consistency and the work ethic that you guys were doing. And I sort of tend to think there's a commonality there for anyone in any other industry in their own lives to go, the goal needs to be on the day-to-day and the target is the future, and that'll take care of itself. If we create an environment that gives us purpose and gives us drive to turn up every day, then success will come. But you can't have it the other way. You can't just focus on the outcome without loving and being all up in the day-to-day.
Yeah, because you got to have a sort of a clear why, right? Isn't that the whole?
Yeah.
It is all day-to-day stuff. And if you've got, geez, when you think about it, it's like the perfect job, really. So the day-to-day was writing songs. Some days we would write shit songs. Some days we would write one great song, or you'd get the idea for a great song. So you'd be like, oh, wow, I just got massive positive feedback just by being in a room with 4 other people and going, this is cool, man. So that was the day-to-day. And then we had this perfect feedback from, you play a gig and you get to see, and someone would go, it's like your boss saying, wow, this is really good. Or, oh. And no one ever said this is shit. They just didn't say anything.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah. Like there's this funny thing about playing, just on a bit of a tangent. Whenever you played in Melbourne, no one moved. They all just stood there with their arms crossed or something. And it was just this thing Melbourne did. And so
because they were so cold? Or?
I have no idea. It was just the Melbourne reaction was not to react. And you'd always come away from Melbourne going, yeah, that was fun, but it was confusing as hell.
Not sure if they liked it or hated it or.
Yeah. So,
okay.
But anyway, like you're saying, it's a funny one, isn't it? I wonder how you can build that into a normal job.
Yeah.
It's really about what is the goal in the end, and what are you doing every day to get to that goal, sort of thing. Yeah. But then to get feedback that's not destroying your everyday, like how do you get that?
Yeah.
You know.
But I think what you tapped into at the time was you were, in a Simon Sinek sort of way, you were playing an infinite game. There was no end. It was just, I'm just doing this because I love doing this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, it's said that not everyone has that luxury to do what they love to do.
That's right.
Irrespective, but I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, I just find it so intriguing that you've got a bunch of guys who are obviously very technically very good. You guys work well together. There's no end goal. There's not, let's make 100 widgets or let's make sure we sell this many records or book out this many tours. It's just, we love making music and then you have this high performance level of, we want to make the best music. You're not mucking around. It's like, that was good, but it can be better. And everyone puts in. And so talk to me about the record label, that first one that came through.
It's funny, but the way you talk about it like that, just sorry to go off on that thinking end, is you look at Coldplay and they're on that game too. They're just constantly coming up with inventing new ways to make amazing music. I think what they had that we didn't have was they want to be massive too. Like he wants to be a massive rock star, I reckon. And you can see it in his performance. He's on stage with 15,000 people in a stadium and he wants to touch every one of them emotionally, but with his physical sense. Like the same with Mick Jagger. Like Mick Jagger's performance is just, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Peter Garrett is just phenomenal to watch. So there's that other aspect where they go, okay, we're taking it to the next level, which is we want to be massive to these people sort of thing. I think Powderfinger, we were just so into writing the good tunes. Sometimes we forget about the other stuff, you know? So, yeah.
In terms of, you're talking about in terms of actual performance?
Yeah, performance, yeah. You can see the bands that have committed to being performing.
The very best performer.
And it's nearly like they become characters of themselves too. David Bowie, Bono, Peter Garrett, Chris Martin, Michael Jackson. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
What a fucking freak, if you don't mind me swearing. I mean, he's a questionable character, but amazing to watch, you know.
Side note.
Yeah.
Mum picked me up in year 6 camp and we went and saw the 1996 performance in Brisbane.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
It was awesome.
Never seen him live. That's crazy.
We were so far back. Mum could only afford those tickets, but
still.
Props to her.
Jeez.
But I get your point, right? I get your point that there is that, because you guys played obviously technically really well live. There was no issue there, but you're talking about the charismatic sort of almost theatrical performance element.
Yes. Where you become larger than life. I think Powderfinger was so into being just normal, they forgot that there was this character that they could expose to the world sort of thing. And that just comes down to your upbringing and personality, really.
Sure. I can't imagine Chris Martin's putting it on. No, I don't think he is. I think that's
probably
just him,
not.
though.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually.
He might want to be, the big performer, but I imagine that comes
naturally. That's true, isn't it? So true.
You're not going to do that unnaturally
No,
in front of
that's
100,000
true.
people.
That's true. That's very true.
Talk to me around the environment around the record label. Paying bills through the small gigs you're getting?
Yes, pretty much, and not earning any money.
Yeah, just covering costs.
Just covering costs. We recorded our first album, which was a dud. We recorded another EP. The funny story was we had a very early EP that was an indie EP, and it did very well. This, like a short play, 4 or 5 songs. And on the back of that, the record company signed us. And then grunge happened. And we decided we were going to be a grunge band, not a rock and roll band. And we wrote this crazy, weird, technical grunge album, and it just completely did nothing. And the record company was like, we've signed these guys and it's not working. There was this choice between Powderfinger and a band called Juice, who had both signed at the same time. The record company sort of said to us, "Hey, fellas," they didn't say you're making shit music, but they sort of implied you've really gone off the rails sort of here. What's going on? And I think it was a competition between which one of us would sort of do the wrong thing first, and then we'd get booted. And apparently what they did was we listened and we changed. We didn't change what we were doing, but we found this new groove to what we were doing. And it was like, oh man, that's what groove is. That's what melody is. And that sort of corresponded with the record company going, wow, this is really good. What Juice did was they stayed doing what they were doing, which was like this Led Zeppelin funk. And they recorded an album. And one of the things they stipulated is that the album cover had to be a painting by Hieronymus Bosch. The use of the painting was going to cost something like $20,000. And these guys were like, they were like the kings of Sydney. They thought they were the best thing in the world. And they've been brought up to think they were the best things in the world.
Right.
And the record company said, "You sure you want to do it?" And they said, "Yeah, of course we want to do it." And they did it, and the album sort of went shit. But it was a real sign of these guys can't be trusted sort of thing. So hilarious.
So that record label stayed.
The record label stayed. We started doing well. They had mentioned to us, maybe you could, stop being so cool with like 30-second intros on your songs with all the feedback and crazy sound. Just get into the song, just start playing good shit. And we took it on board, and we actually wrote a really good album that felt amazing.
That was Double Allergic.
And that was Double Allergic, and it did really well on Triple J, and we were all part of that sort of explosion.
And still at that stage, no chats about we could actually make it, inverted commas, or it was just...
I can't remember those conversations, to tell you the truth. It was all day to day.
But it was just, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. What are you eating for lunch today? We're going to go and get Hare Krishnas again. And I love this bit. Or it was cricket. We're talking about cricket, playing cricket,
From that point on, from the success of Double Allergic, Internationalists, and then Odyssey, and then as you go.
Yep.
Is there any key moments looking back to go, or even at the relevant time to go, oh, this is pretty cool?
Okay, but on that, I was saying cricket, Hare Krishnas, we also talked about music all the time. We'd analyse what we were doing, and in an emotional sense, how did certain things make you feel, sort of thing, but without realising we were doing that. A few cool things that happened. We recorded Pick You Up as a one-off to see how it was going, and released it as a single. And as we were mixing the album, it became number 1 on Triple J or something like that, not a Hottest 100. So that was a cool moment. We were sort of in the studio and we heard the radio pumping it, I mean, these are early days stuff. I'm trying to think of the wow moments. There was a wow moment. Helen Razor, who was a DJ on Triple J, sort of declared how amazing we were, and she did some great monologue about how awesome Powderfinger were.
And you've grown up with believing that Triple J is the Bible.
Yeah, at that stage, absolutely. Yeah. It all happened so slowly. It's hard to say that something was
which is an interesting bit
moment
as well, right? Because it's funny how life is, in the sense that it is incremental, and success more often than not, and success earned is incremental. And so your understanding of your new reality changes every day incrementally without you even realizing it. So before you realize it, you're playing in front of 50,000 people. If you went from the dungy place at Fortitude Valley practicing to go to the gig in front of 200 people this weekend, to that step, you're thinking, oh my God, we've made it. Like, this is huge. But because it's so incremental, it almost creeps up on you and you don't realize it's just reality.
We're going from playing to 5,000 people in Brisbane to 1,000 people in Melbourne to 3 people in Canada and then 200 people in the US. So it was nearly like, how do you make every gig really good, no matter who you're playing to? But there's always moments that keep you really down to earth, especially because we didn't have an international explosion sort of thing. We were just doing really well in Australia, and we'd sort of go overseas and it never really took off. I think, like we played things like the Fuji Festival to 2,000 people or we played to 5,000 people in the UK, but there was never anything massive. It was always, like you're saying, day to day, and then you're playing a shit gig and a great gig and,
Yeah.
So.
But even your success in Australia, it's incremental. So at no point do you wake up one morning and you're famous.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
And I even found that, I mean, this is off topic, and I don't know whether Cody will keep this in his edit. I enjoy Formula One racing, right? And so there's this guy, young driver, has always wanted to win races or podiums, and then you can just see him this year. He's gone from getting his first win or first podium to now that's the expectation.
Oh, wow.
And so he's not winning, and he's filthy that he's not winning. Whereas you could, in a really short period of time, like 9 months ago, he would have killed to have been there. But now he's there, and it's like, well, it's just normal.
Wow.
And it's just it's almost like a trap of your brain to go, this is just my existence. And it's maybe predicated on, or it's established from my very first question to you, because I'm like, how have you managed to go from that environment to a normal, inverted commas, life? And your response was, it's all been normal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Whereas from an outsider, I'm like, surely this is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's
funny,
so abnormal for me, but it's so normal for you.
Yeah.
And then because of that incremental change in your life, day to day, over month to month, year to year, you don't really see much difference.
Yeah, true. But then again, when I finished the band and I'd go and hang out with my mates, and they're like, their careers are going like this now. Mine's finished. And they've been like, like lawyers or engineers or something, and they're just hitting their straps at the age of, I finished the band, I was 41. Yeah, 41. And they're just taking off. They're like these amazing jobs. One of my mates just flying out around the world every month, doing amazing stuff. So yeah, it's a funny one. It was nearly like, yeah, it's good to look back on, but people are doing well now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because in a way, I'm sort of living off this, right? Like I'm living off my past. And I know, like, for instance, you take this thing I was doing the Sunny Coast Showdown. I didn't really enjoy being the front man hugely. It was, it was a bit of my idea, and I worked with a mate of mine, Dan Monday, and the Sunshine Coast Screen Collective. But I knew that I had capital in my name, and I thought, okay, I can use this to get indoors and I can ask favors and all that sort of stuff. But I always doubt the it's good value, I suppose, but how much can you keep on using it, really?
A lot. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah,
if you're getting some feedback from your audience, like you used to.
Okay, all
right. But like as you say, you're being looked after from your past, but that's like a condensed time of high level consistency, high level high performance, high level sacrifice.
Yeah.
That is just, it's almost like a whole lifetime worth of sacrifice and consistency and approach truncated into 15 years or thereabouts. Do you know what I mean? And like you have no idea how powerful you can be or what you can achieve if you almost guarantee using what you used and the tools you used and the ability to go, this is my passion, this is my approach to it. You have a team around you to assist, and you have that feedback loop, so you're continually improving. For 15 years, you can be that breakdancer. You can be Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can be the drummer of a rock band. Like
it's true.
It's just you need to have those elements around you, and it has to be your true purpose and what you want to do, unwavering, that when the hurdles come, they're not knocking you down.
Yeah.
They're just part of it, part of the journey.
You put it in that perspective, it's really interesting, and isn't it? It's like, yes, that can be an inspiring way of looking at the world, and you do sort of have to commit everything to it. We don't talk about the sacrifice. You were saying the sacrifice, which I think's
What did you sacrifice?
I reckon I sacrificed relationships, and you can see this in people who are successful. They put one thing on a pedestal. They say, okay, work and success is what I'm going for, and other things suffer. So, I didn't have kids when that was happening, when the band was on. I don't know how I could have dedicated my life to that much to something if I'd had kids. A certain amount of personal happiness, I think I sacrificed a lot because I was chasing this big thing sort of thing. Or that idea of making great songs and doing great shows being so important. Sacrificed a lot of friendships and that sort of stuff, which is pretty shit, really. And I think that's really why it was good to get out of it too.
Yeah, let's unpack that in the sense of what personal happiness do you reflect on missing? Just the relationships with people?
Yeah.
Do you think internally you're looking at yourself
Definitely relationships. I had a long-term relationship that sort of fell apart because I was just away all the time and I was just obsessed with the band. I don't know. I think it was more just stability, having friends that I probably would hang out with more often but I was away all the time sort of thing. Yeah, I think I had to work that all out in the last 5 years of the band, working out that band doesn't actually equal happiness sort of thing. There were a couple of things that realizing that chasing your success doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a happy person in a relationship or at home. And like Powderfinger reached a natural end, I think, where music is concerned, because we were always trying to write new music and be relevant, and we became irrelevant because of our taste in music, really. Music changed. Powderfinger couldn't keep changing.
I think you're right. I think anyone who is driven, whether it's work, any success, if you want to devote a lot of your attention to something, and as I said, you've truncated a lifetime worth of it in 15 years. So of course the work-life balance is not going to be there. And I don't think it can be there. If you're looking for high performance, it's near impossible.
Yeah.
Because by virtue of having that balance and giving your attention to everything, then you're operating at 70% in all aspects.
Yeah.
Probably
less.
I think it's near impossible to think that you can have one without the other.
And
then it's a question of how much are you willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, how much you're willing to sacrifice, and whether you can also recognize what actually makes you happy, what fulfills you inside, sort of thing.
And for you, obviously, for so long, it was the pursuit of the creation of wonderful music and playing the wonderful music.
Yep.
And then at some point, that shifted.
Yeah.
Where you've thought, it's not as strong as it was.
Yeah.
And there are other things in my life that I think would, and I guess that's okay as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And looking back on it, it's like, oh, thank God that happened. The band was in about 2001, 2002, our band was just falling to pieces because we really hadn't invested a lot into our friendships. We'd been friends. The success of the band was more important than, us trying to be friends in a way. And that was going to take, I don't know, thinking less about music. I must admit, I think the music sort of dropped off in the last 5 years because we were going, well, it's more important that we remain friends than we write fantastic music. Because writing fantastic music is sometimes it's really fucking volatile. Between band, but within the band, just fighting for what you think is the right thing to do, I look at these whatever the successful bands, and I always wonder how do they negotiate sort of things. I look at
for the non-musical listener and myself, what are the things that are up for negotiation with song creation?
If you get a chance to see a documentary about the Rolling Stones writing "Sympathy for the Devil," it'll show you a couple of things. So they went. The band went to, I think they went to France, and they were in this warehouse writing "Sympathy for the Devil" over about a week, one song over a week. And you can see how often that song changes over that week. So you imagine you might hear a song that a band plays, but there's probably, 20, 25 different ways of playing that song. And everyone's got a different idea of how that song would work the best. So whoever's the strongest personality in the band is probably going to push it in a certain way, and that's going to push other people out. And a song is like it belongs to you. It's a personal attachment.
It's personal, yeah.
So it's like if someone doesn't like the way you do something, it's like punching them in the head, or in the heart, sort of thing. So you've got to be careful with how you sort of approach that. This Sympathy for the Devil, they play it over a week and it changes. It changes dramatically over this week. But what the Stones do is they don't care. They don't sit around and have an argument about where it's going. They just let it go. And they're like having fun and they're drinking with all these friends and their friends are coming in for the jam. And at the end of the week, they've created this beast, all because they're just completely patient with each other. They don't mind hanging out each other. They've probably got millions and billions of dollars, so it doesn't matter. But it's really interesting to see the whole band and how they react.
Yeah, I disagree that the money matters though for them.
Well, they don't have jobs.
Sure.
So they don't have to. They can spend a week in a rehearsal space as opposed to. But it's great because Charlie's sort of sitting there, and I reckon he's the most impatient one, as much as we see. And he's like, "Oh, these fuckers are drunk all the time," and and I'm just playing drums for hours on end every day, which he totally gets. But you can sort of see these different personalities in there. It's fantastic. So,
at what stage did the period of time in that early 2000s does Bernard or the other members say, "I want to do this myself for a bit"?
So we had a break after one of our albums. I think it was Vulture Street. We decided to have a break and Bernard went off and did his album. And he'd sort of been bringing a lot of these songs to the band for a while. And we just say, it doesn't seem to fit with Powderfinger stuff. So I think when he went and did his album, he'd probably written half of it already. And, he'd had those songs developing. And at the same time, his long-term relationship blew apart and it just gave him all this fodder and it was fantastic, for his creative process. For his creative process. Yeah. So, So he went and did that.
And at that stage, are you thinking, we'll be back, or is there resentment there from you or the other members?
There was some moments where we were trying to plan life around him and I was trying to work out when I was going to be in Australia or when I was, and I think there was some miscommunication there. And I'd be like, "Oh man, just tell us when we need to be around." I remember we did a book, a Powderfinger book, and they'd written that I was really pissed off about something, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't know about that," but anyway. So there was just some confusion about that, and I think eventually when we did get back together, we'd sort of changed our dynamic in the band. I didn't have as much drive when I got back and, we just sort of took a bit more easy then, I think.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you make the decision, I'm done? Or is it a collective decision?
No, I think about 5 years before the band finished, I decided in my head that I was done and I went and started studying. I studied international relations and politics at Griffith Uni. But, I was just sort of moving on. I think I just wanted to grow up a little bit. And I'm not saying that we were immature, but we'd been in a bubble for 15 years.
Yeah, I guess the front question was more, I guess, the idea that you have condensed this 15 years of so much focus of high performance and so much focus on sacrifice and dedication, and then how do you extricate yourself out of that and live a life where it's probably not as intense those traits?
The relationship between the band members took a toll on me. We just weren't getting along as well in the end. But I just wanted to do something else with my brain. My brain was saying, you need to do something else. You need to chase something else. I suppose it's nearly like, it's like a drug, right?
Yeah.
Every time you feel it, you want more, but you're not feeling it as much anymore.
Sure.
So why not look for another drug, which is study and
something different.
Writing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did journalism.
Yeah.
And then what? The creative juices came back after.
Yeah, just after. I worked for the ABC for 6.5, 7 years. I don't know. It was really amazing. Met some fantastic people, some friends for life.
What did journalism teach you?
Journalism taught me efficiency, bit of respect. And I think I was lucky that I came from the band to see that everyone you speak to is actually just a human being deep down. And it's nearly like the ones who think they're better than human beings are the ones doing the worst stuff. And on that sense, that you should respect people in whatever position they are. And I'm not sure I feel the same, but maybe in your world you get to see, the nuances of people. But I don't think anyone's truly evil they don't mean to be. They just end up doing the wrong thing. I think people try to do the right thing deep down, other than narcissists, I suppose. But yeah, I got to see a lot more personalities, which was fantastic. Got to live in the real world and earn a wage and all that stuff. I'd love to be a good screenwriter and a good director on film, and I think that's a long journey. I think I'm learning every day, and it's incremental. It's the same sort of thing, but I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I love the little things you learn every day about something. It inspires me.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed it'll turn into something, but, I'll give myself a couple of more years and see what happens.
And now as a dad?
I mean, that's the most challenging thing of all, right?
Yeah, we were talking about this as soon as I walked in.
Holy cow.
Yeah, how's that?
I'm so lucky I've got my wife that we can talk about it and work it out, So, God.
How good's that?
It is the most complicated thing, because in journalism you meet all these people that act in a moderately logical way, but kids.
But to have an ally, because it hits you differently to her, and at any given moment relative to your day and her day and the kids' day, and to be able to say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What do you got?
How often do you do that?
Yeah.
You just throw up your hands these days. I think, there's that funny thing. It's nearly like trying not to get too riled up all the time, because you just, how the hell did that work? And now I'm not supposed to get angry, right?
Yeah.
Like, just calm yourself. Yeah.
I know.
It makes you old very quickly.
Yeah. It's a wonderful vocation, but especially when you're tired, and it affects you. If your sleep's affected, you wouldn't want to have it any other way.
No.
And also to understand that, I think for me at least, that they're not adults, right? They're kids.
Yeah.
They're doing their best. They're innocent. They're not trying to rile you up because, they're being dickheads.
Yeah. And that's what it is too. I'll get in trouble for that if my kids hear this. Did you call me a dickhead? You know how you sort of think, oh, one day it'll all make sense. It'll all click, and they'll be like, I reckon my mum still looks at me and goes, I don't get what's going on with that guy.
She's still thinking when he's 50, it'll be good. People say when they turn adolescent that it's challenging, right? But I think anything without sleep is makes life impossible. So
you've done very well, man.
Thank you. Zero to whenever they get their sleep sorted has to be the hardest.
Yeah.
More challenging, different challenge.
Yeah.
Adolescent maybe, but we've all had a good sleep.
Bit of brandy, mate. Back in the old days.
Yeah. John, this has been great. I really
thanks.
appreciate your time, mate, and sharing the stories. Before you go, I haven't actually sent you this list, which is usually the case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you these questions, and you can take as long or as short as you want. What does success mean to you?
Probably some type of happiness, but there's different parts of your life that you're trying to be happy with. So if you can balance each one, the adult one, the parenting one, the one when you become a child, all of those different personalities, happiness in each of them, maybe.
I like it.
Nearly impossible.
I'll flip that then and say, what's your view? What's your take on happiness? How do you be happy, John?
How do I be happy? Oh, gee, that's a hard one. That's about balance too, isn't it? Because it depends on how you're feeling during the day, I suppose. And you can get little bits. I reckon it's incremental, right? As long as you don't have too high expectations and you can see the good shit. It's about seeing the good shit. Like like, what's a great example? When your kid comes home and makes a joke. Now that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. I'll give you one for me. Off the top of your head, a good joke from the kids?
No, but you know what I mean.
No,
They're
my
all
10-year-old,
personal,
my
right?
10-year-old
You got one?
Yeah. Just recently, made me really laugh. You're in the car, and he goes, and you can smell that he's farted. And there's 3 boys, but I knew that it was him. And I said, "Did you fart?" He goes, "No." "Tell the truth." He goes, "Well, you're annoying." That was him telling the truth.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
Good.
I liked it.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
A book that you would most recommend someone to read.
The book I would recommend you read, and it's not so much of a self-help book, it's just the most phenomenal, immersive writing I have ever come across, is Don Winslow's The Force. So just it takes you into a character that is phenomenally messed up and twisted, but I don't know if it's inspiring, but you just wonder how the heck did this author get into this character. It's amazing.
Yeah, cool. Okay, you've got to invite 4 people to dinner, living or dead, but not friends or family. Who are you inviting?
4 people to dinner, not living or dead.
Living or dead.
Living or dead, but not friends or family. Let's just go with Mitch Mitchell, Keith Moon, all drummers, and Stevie Wonder, who's a great drummer as well, but apparently Stevie's one of the funniest people in the world.
Okay. And finally, a guest that you think we should have on the show.
A guest?
It'd be a good chat.
I was going to say my mate Dan Monday would be good. He's always really interesting. Get Kevin Rudd. That'd be interesting.
You know K. Rudd?
Success and happiness.
He's in the States at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
But do you know K. Rudd? Sure.
I know him, yeah, but he's pretty hard to get a hold of these days. So
is he under Kevin 07 or is he under Kevin Rudd on your phone?
Not Kevin 07.
All right, we'll get that.
All right.
Well, man, yeah, that's a good idea. Jon Coghill, thank you so much for your time, mate.
All right, thanks, Richard.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're pogoing, drunk, and listening to live music, let the person next to you know all about us. Until next time, peace.